This is the 2020 Mahindra Pik Up S11 double cab 4x4 automatic, which is new for the 2020 model. And right off the bat, I'm a bit conflicted about this car. So on one hand, you've got the fact that it only costs 415,000 Rand for the top of the range model, which is this one. There is a Karoo edition, but that's only, I think, 10,000 Rand more for a front bull bar and some alloy or aftermarket wheels. But on the other, you can at times very clearly see where the costs have been cut in order to get it to 415,000 Rand. For example, it's got quite an aggressive, menacing front end. I mean, the headlights, the grille, it's very bulky, it's very macho, and that gives it a very menacing road presence. But then all the design work in the front is undone by this rear. I would have liked to see at least just a few more modern touches like LED bulbs in the tail lights like most of its competitors are using. Along with my theory of not designing the car as a whole to cut costs, another one, which is on the left hand side fender, engine name, nice little badge, power spec. But on the other side, nothing. And I've checked the other Mahindras, it's not there. I'm sure there is a reason why Mahindra picked only putting badges on the passenger side, but I would have preferred badges on both sides or neither. On the plus side, there are some features that will appeal to the leisure market. 34-degree approach angle, which is ahead of the Hilux and the Ranger, but then it fights against itself with a breakover angle of 18 degrees, a departure angle of 15 degrees due to that long section at the back, and ground clearance of only 210 millimeters. You'll be able to get up to the obstacle, but not over it, and definitely not leave it. But that workhorse exterior is contrasted by the surprisingly premium feeling interior. Most of the materials are high quality plastics, and except for one little piece here by the gear lever. The seats are quite comfortable, although a bit lacking in the lateral support, and I struggle to find the perfect seating position for myself. You'll find a touchscreen with some interesting features, or quirks rather. There's no dedicated media controls for radio stations or skip song. It's only volume and then the different modes. It's too dark, even with the headlights off, which brightens the screen. It's too dark during daytime. There's Bluetooth support with built-in navigation. There's also a USB and auxiliary port for other inputs, media controls, cruise control on the steering wheel, and what's quite surprising, all the buttons have a very tactile clicky click, which is quite nice, and it makes it feel more expensive than the vehicle actually is. Another interesting quirk of this vehicle is the infotainment plays a tune or a song when you start it up. Luckily you can turn that off. It also has this extremely prolonged graphics that come up. Also, the driver's side window controls are too far back for tall people. I actually like to do this clawy thing or just reach over with my left arm, which seems to be a bit easier. One advantage of the vehicle being so tall and upright is incredible headroom. I'm 1.86 meters tall, and I've got a hand's length of headroom, clearly meant for wearing a hard hat, which again alludes to the slightly more commercial side of this vehicle. Under the bonnet, you'll find the M-Hawk 2.2 litre turbo diesel motor producing 103 kilowatts and 320 newton meters. It's not the most amazing specs, but it has, for this vehicle, more than enough power. At not one point did I ever feel that the vehicle is lacking in power for me to be able to overtake a car or anything like that. New for 2020 is the 6-speed automatic gearbox. It's the same one they use in the Fortuner and the Hilux. With various driving loads, it is quite smooth. It drives exactly the same as it would in a Hilux. Although I found on downshifts it can be a bit aggressive, it could do with a bit more refinement, especially shifting down into first gear. Peak torque is between 1500 and 2800 RPM. So the gearbox under just plain normal driving circumstances shifts in the peak torque area, which means you're never wanting for more power. It always has a power and it returns very good fuel economy. One thing I really like about this vehicle is that it didn't try and hide the fact that it is turbocharged. That's something I really miss on a lot of the modern vehicles, is that they try and hide turbo sounds. This doesn't. There's some great wastegate sounds, some great turbo sounds coming from the exhaust, and I'm really hoping that manufacturers realize that some people actually want to hear the turbo. When driving on paved roads, I'm once again a bit conflicted. The front suspension is soft, supple, compliant. Any bumps are dealt with effectively. The problem for me is the rear. Now, in one of our previous videos, we had a complaint or a comment that someone said, "No, you guys never test the bakkies with load." True. A, it's not always that easy to organize. B, you don't always drive around with 450 kilograms of load in the back, especially if the bakkie has been bought for leisure purposes more than commercial. If it's commercial, it's a different story. Then I completely agree with you. Then most of the time you will have a few 100 kilograms in the back, probably. The rear suspension is extremely skittish. It's very, very hard. I've had it a few times where I've hit a pothole or a bump or a rut in the road or something, and obviously it didn't, but it felt like the rear of the car was going to kick out, especially if that bump was in a corner. The Mahindra comes with tyres that I've never heard of, but in their defense, they're called JK tyres, Elanzo Supras, are surprisingly quiet up until around 100 k's an hour. Then they do get a bit noisy, and offer decent grip even in torrential rain, which we had last week, and I had the immense pleasure of driving this vehicle home in that rain. But to my surprise, and I'm sure Mahindra did their research on what tyres they put on, it dealt with the conditions extremely well. On gravel roads, that rear suspension unfortunately once again becomes a bit of a problem with no load on it, and I'll keep adding that proviso because I'm pretty sure someone will comment that. If you are on a extremely bumpy or corrugated gravel road, I'd be very careful about what speed I'm driving. I'm doing 60 it's on a flatter section now, and it feels perfectly fine. But on the rougher sections, I didn't go faster than 40 k's an hour. Also because it's not my car, so I don't want to risk anything. But if you keep your wits about you, as on the tar road, but even more on the gravel road, and you drive it in 4 high, which you probably should to protect the gravel road, just not to damage it, you'll be fine. As long as you don't act like a hooligan and try and do it at 140 k's an hour, which no one would recommend, you'll be fine. Just be responsible. But other than that, it rides perfectly well. It doesn't rattle, doesn't vibrate. There's no odd sounds. This car does only have 6,000 kilometers on, but yeah, the only thing rattling is my equipment in the back. I did take the vehicle off-road to a little area outside Durbanville. Unfortunately, you won't be tackling any serious off-road trails, mainly due to the ground clearance and departure angles. They are severely restrictive. Other than that, it does have low range, which engages quite quickly, and you should be able to tackle at least a grade 1 to max 2 trail, something like Crobo 4x4, where it's mainly loose rocks and stuff and not big boulders to climb over or very steep dunes, for example. It might sound like I'm ragging on the Mahindra a bit, but truth be told, it offers extremely good value for money with an interior that's on par with its more expensive competitors. The other way of looking at it, you can buy a Mahindra, fully kitted out for overlanding, do any suspension work you want to do, put new tires on, and still have quite a lot of money to spare. So from the SA4x4 team, thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, comment down below any questions, comment which vehicles you would like to see and where you would like to see them go. Visit our website for all the latest stories. We also have a free app that's available on Google Play and the iStore. To download our free app, visit our website, scroll all the way to the bottom and pick Google Play Store or Apple App Store, depending on which phone you have. Also follow all our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, to stay up to date with daily automotive news and travel news. And we hope to see you in the next one. Cheers!